What will you do when the unexpected happens? In this episode of the Leadersmith, we're going to talk about that question. Stick around.
In a world of incompetent bosses, micromanagers, and petty tyrants, you are listening to The Leadersmith. Now, here is your host, Darren Gerdes.
Okay, so it is 2020 and it has been the most bizarre year in my memory. We've had the coronavirus, which led to quarantine. Kids are home being homeschooled. We can't go out, but there are protests and riots going on simultaneously, which is going to lead to another spike of the coronavirus. So things are just bizarre, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon that we can foresee. If nothing else, we're going to either re-elect Trump or have Joe Biden as a new president. So it's just going to continue to get strange. And I'm only half kidding about the political thing, but the political thing is going to be as important as other shoes that will drop over the course of the year. My question is, are you prepared for plan C, D, E, F, G? So, if I had asked you in January, how would you handle a quarantine? You would have looked at me like I was from Mars. But that's the reality. We've gone through this now. And so that led me to think about other vulnerabilities. I understand that, for example, a small nuclear blast, an electromagnetic pulse, will destroy much of the internet and the hard drives in the radius around wherever the blast is. So let's say that goes off in New York. God forbid, I hope nothing like that happens. But a big chunk of the internet goes down, or what happens if you lose all your stuff? And we want to think about that kind of thing now. Yes, it's improbable, but so is the coronavirus shutting down the entire country. So we want to start thinking about that. Here's what's less improbable. An earthquake. We live where I am right now, and where most of my listeners are, in Charleston, South Carolina. In 1886, there was a 6.9 to 7.3 magnitude earthquake. Now, if we're right on that fault line, and if an earthquake happens again, what will you do? Well, your house is destroyed, your business is out of operation. What happens to you? Start thinking about it now. Even more probable, if you live in Charleston, we had hurricanes that have been, it seems like more over the last few years, but CNN just reported that we're going to have up to 19 named storms, and 6 to 10 of those will be hurricanes. In an average year, we have 12 named storms, and up to 6 are hurricanes. So that's not an unlikely possibility. But let's focus a little narrower. What about your business? What happens if your business goes under or doesn't come back after the coronavirus? What happens if your job is no longer needed because maybe you interface with people, that's a default part of your business, and now you have to do something online, and for whatever reason you can't? What happens if you no longer have your job? How do you get to plan B, C, D, E, F? What happens if your product is obsolete or a competitor runs you out of business? What are your backup plans? Even on a small scale, what happens to you if your computer crashes? What happens if you get ransomware or your computer is stolen? What happens then? Let me just stop there for a second. If you get nothing else out of anything that I say right now, go home or go to work and back up your computer today. Get that done so you could have some peace of mind. I had a computer crash once at the very beginning of the semester. It was the first week in August. And for a professor, that is the worst possible time for this to happen. If it happens over Christmas or happens in the summer, no problem. I have time. But I was creating PowerPoints daily for what I was going to be doing in class. That was a worst case scenario, and I've learned from it, and I've created, well, here's the answer to the whole problem: redundant systems. I back up and I multiply back up. And that is how you need to be thinking about all these problems, and not just potential problems that are likely, but even the improbable. What will you do if you lose your job? Well, the rich are rich because they develop multiple streams of income. I'm not trying to sell you anything, but I want you to start thinking in terms of multiple streams of income. If you ask any good salesman, a salesman will tell you he doesn't want to be dependent on just one customer. He wants to have multiple customers so that if things go sideways with one customer, he can still function and still bring home some dinner. Okay? You need need to think the same way, but you need to prepare ahead of time. So don't try to build a life raft while the ship is going down. That's the worst possible time. You need to be proactive. You need to think about it now. You know that things are going to happen to you somewhere along the line. You have home and auto and medical insurance because you know that these things are going to break, or your body's going to break down, or whatever. Bad things happen. So think about what could happen now. Start today. Think about it. Think about the possibilities. Think about even improbabilities and start to brace against these threats. In a worst case scenario, if you brace against these threats, you have peace of mind and nothing bad has happened, and you're more than prepared for what doesn't happen. But stop taking the status quo for granted. Okay, so I said a lot. I said it quickly. Here's the quotation for contemplation. This comes from Lieutenant Colonel J.L. Schley in The Military Engineer in 1929. He said this: "It's been said critically that there is a tendency in many armies to spend the peacetime studying how to fight the last war. I don't want you to be fighting the last war, folks. Please start thinking about what you need to do to prepare so that you can be ready for whatever comes next." Hey, if you like this episode, please let me know. I am Darren Gerdes on Twitter, DarinGerdes, and I hope this is going to help you prepare for what comes next.